Hey guys, BigSquareRoadDrewer.com. Look who I got on the line. Andy Scheckman, Miles Franklin. I've been telling everybody, if you don't have a local guy that you can walk in, you know him, you're going to get a good price from him, you can pick up your metal right away. Give Andy an email, send him an email at andy@milesfranklin.com. Hello, Andy.
Vic's, good to see you, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good.
Having a sip of my chaga coffee.
Good. We need to keep you healthy because you got a lot of lifting to do, moving all this physical inventory. Because we know that Miles Franklin actually moves physical inventory as opposed to JP Morgan and their ETFs and SLV and all that, which do not move physical metal because it's impossible to move 110 million ounces of physical silver in a matter of a couple of days. But I did want to, I don't know if you saw my discussion this morning. In the last 7 days, 50 million ounces have gone out of SLV. So they throw it in, the price hasn't changed, and the authorized participants, if you're a big player in SLV and you have 100,000 shares, you can cash those in for physical according to the rules.
Yeah,
So,
Ted Butler talks about that a lot as a way for JP Morgan to have added to their stash, and it really doesn't show up in any of the figures. You have to do what you do, dig and then extrapolate and figure it out. And buying the physical coins that they did for a number of years, you can tell just by the footprint in the mint numbers that exploded when the price was going down, and all us dealers wondering who the hell's buying it. You can tell that those things happen. Absolutely.
well,
But that's interesting. I didn't see that yet.
It's well, so 50 million. I mean, we had 110, I think, went in. 50 million came out in the last 7 days. It keeps me wondering. Maybe it is all JP Morgan. Maybe JP Morgan is leasing to these authorized participants who's putting it in SLV, and then JP Morgan is pulling it back out and double leasing it to them again. So these authorized participants are triple short because they're the shorts on the COMEX as well. It is a complete cluster. The other thing that's going on that I think is very interesting in the silver world is on the COMEX, there's still over 90,000 contracts open for the, what is it? The February 24th is the last day of trading. So there will be a substantial amount of silver available to be delivered in the March delivery month.
Well, two things come to mind. First of all, Chris Marcus has done a great job of showing how SLV hasn't been audited since last March. Just as a footnote to all of that, it has not been audited for over basically a year almost, as the price has gone up, and there's a lot of craziness going on. And as far as the deliveries, yeah, over 300 million ounces were delivered last year, and I've been saying publicly, to me, that was the biggest surprise in 2020. Following a linear progression of central banks repatriating their gold starting in 2017 before the reclassification of it. And then you see the massive amount of the others reportable category on COMEX draining the COMEX of silver before the rest of us catch on. And that's what's happening. They're repositioning. You can see the big money, the sophisticated money, these sovereign wealth funds and family offices that comprise the others. They're moving lockstep with the sophisticated investors, the big money, like JP Morgan, who has gone to great lengths to take possession off the exchanges, removal of counterparty risk, hold it themselves. It's something you've been saying for a long time, get it in your possession. But that's what the big money is doing. Central banks did it first, commercial banks doing it next, sovereign wealth funds and family offices doing it. You can see the progression. They're positioning ahead of the curve. And then the rest of us will wake up one day and say, well, where'd all the silver go? And it'll already be in the big money's hands.
Well, that's what I wanted. I've been screaming about all week is for the little guy, the retail is going to run out first. I do think we're going to hit a place where nobody wants to sell any physical at all. They might still be trading on the COMEX or in SLV, but there won't be any physical transactions because nobody wants to give it up. I've been talking about for a while now. I just did a discussion with Jenny Moonstone yesterday, and we talked about the gold silver ratio, and she does all her witchy voodoo magic with the tarot cards, but she was coming up with the gold and silver twins, as in it should be a 1-to-1 ratio. I don't care what anybody says. The ratio is at 67-to-1 right now. It was at 120-to-1. The ratio means nothing I would say after 1971, when they implemented these computer trading programs. Before
It-
that, it was set by government, but it was always set by government with some kind of basis in reality. The amount of silver available versus the amount of gold available, that was always kind of the benchmark. And when it would stray away from that, they'd have to adjust. Today, there is no reality in the supply of silver versus supply of gold, the amount of silver being sold versus the amount of gold being sold, the amount in the ground versus of each. None of it screams 67. A lot of it screams 1-to-1, or even bigger. 1-to-10 is what if all this secret gold I've been discovering is true, we are on like the brink of a mental collapse in people's understanding of what the gold and silver ratio is.
Well, when you have 5,000 years worth of accumulated human wisdom saying it's one thing, it's hard to flip it on its head. But you're right. Keith Neumeyer is a friend of mine. He is the CEO of First Majestic. Of all the mining companies out there, he's one of the few CEOs that isn't a geologist. He's a businessman, and I like the way he runs things. And I had a conversation with him actually publicly on YouTube. And I asked him that question. At the time, it was 80-to-1. And I said, Keith, what do you think of this 80-to-1 ratio everyone's talking about? I mean, it really screams that silver's the place to be, don't you think? He says, Andy, I really don't even pay attention to the silver gold ratio. I pay more attention to the mining ratio. He says, across the entire globe, the entire silver industry is pulling it out of the ground right now at 8-to-1. I said, well, how long do you think it can stay at these ratios? He says, well, you tell me. He says, how long can you think we can pull it out of the ground at 80-to-1 and sell it at 8-to-1? He says it will regress to its natural mean. So here you have the CEO of one of the biggest silver mining companies on the planet agreeing with everything you're saying, all the way down to 8-to-1, which would be almost a nine-fold gain from where it is right now. And when you realize that all the silver that's ever been used in the last 80 years is in a landfill somewhere because no one scrapped it out of anything that conducts electricity, you're right. We are getting to a critical point where these kinds of numbers should not seem outlandish if you take a step back and look at the reality and the math of it. Quite frankly, it seems logical. So I agree.
We can't have any logic in silver. What do you think? The only thing I would say, I love Keith, and he's the only. I mean, he's literally the only CEO I've in the mining sector that I've been, raised my hat to. Say, thank God somebody's saying something about this. But I would say with the 8-to-1 ratio coming out of the ground, the majority of that goes into the industrial side. So that's bought and gone. Whereas historically, 5,000 years of history says you're looking at a monetary value in the gold silver ratio, the amount of monetary gold versus the amount of monetary silver. We have very little monetary silver coming out of the ground every year because everything's used for these electronics and all that. And all that started, in the early 1900s when.
Well, which is what people really need to grasp. What you're saying is exactly right. And people need to understand that. Think of another asset, another commodity that is bracketed by massive demand on either side. You have the monetary side, and silver has proven that for 5,000 years, but you also have an increasing, expanding industrial side, and you need it for iPhones and iPads and batteries and lights and water purification and on and on and on. And now you have the Chinese Belt Road and Rail Initiative, the largest infrastructure project in human history that's underway, connecting Asia and Africa. 65% of human population, and it's not just by roads and railroads, it'll be digitally. The amount of silver that is needed and increasingly needed is crazy. The message that you are saying to people, you're giving them a generational gift, whether it be in theta, whether it be in silver. And I say that to you with 100% objectivity. I cannot think of another asset on the planet that has better fundamentals and is undervalued, basically half of its double peak 1980 high of $50. I mean, everything screams wake up. And that's why the big money is doing what they're doing. That's why they position themselves in front of all of us. You can see it by pulling it off the exchanges. You can see it in paying a $920 million fine, which is a slap on the wrist, in order to manipulate the price, in order to accumulate. You can see it by the fact that the largest silver trust in the world is administered by a company that just paid a $920 million fine. So the whole thing it reeks, and you're doing everyone a favor. And I'm just honored to be able to help your listeners, which just leads me to one point also, for all of your listeners out there who contact me, please be patient. We'll get back to you quickly within a day at the most, maybe two. Last week, over the last 2 weeks, when things blew up, for the first time in my 31-year career, I had to stop trading on Saturday morning. I closed down. Most of the online retailers did it Friday night. And for you guys out there who don't know why that happened, it had less to do with everyone not having any product. A lot of people didn't. A lot of the online companies were sold out of product. But in a nutshell, here's how it works. On typically my head trader will call me up and he'll say something like, "You have an interview with Bix this weekend or anything?" And I actually said, "Today I do." Now what that means is today he's going to buy a bunch of futures contracts into the weekend. Last time we did it 2 weeks ago, we bought 11. We had 55,000 ounces long into the weekend. And so what happened was by Saturday morning, he called me and said, "You realize we've already sold 90,000 ounces. You are exposed 35,000 ounces into the open." The market is open 24/7, except from Friday night close, which Central Time here would be about 5 o'clock, until Sunday night, 5 o'clock. That's when the market sleeps. When it opens at 5 o'clock Sunday night, it's opening in Asia. Everyone was afraid it was going to gap higher. This was during the Reddit craze. And so most of the online retailers did not want to expose themselves any more than they already were. By Friday night, they shut down trading. I had to make the same decision Saturday. And when the market opened up a couple dollars, it cost us roughly $40,000. We were able to hedge it really quickly. But that's the risk that you take in a market where you're not able to hedge. And if the COMEX market blows up, that's just a little taste of what will happen. There will be no more lock it in until the money is received. Anyways, I digress. But that is what we saw with this amount of demand. Absolutely crazy demand. First time in my career, I had to stop trading. Anyways, we have great supply. We have a lot of stuff in stock, and we will get back to your listeners. You have a lot of them that contact us. God bless them and you. And I'm trying my hardest to keep up with it, as are my brokers. So if anyone contacts us, we will get back over the weekend. I'll make sure of it, hopefully today. But again, I just appreciate being here, Bix. I'll make sure that your listeners are getting the best price and the best service in the country for as long as I possibly can offer that best price. We'll keep doing it.
Is it still the best way to get in touch with you? An email?
Yeah, and so you can email either me and Andy at Miles Franklin, or also info at Miles Franklin. The two of them, info at Miles Franklin, may actually get things quicker, but I'm checking emails all day long, and Andy at Miles Franklin is also fine. And certainly do appreciate the opportunity to work with your listeners. We take it really, really seriously.
That is awesome. I just want to tell all the Road to Ruta listeners that have been riding this damn silver roller coaster for the past 20 years with me, we are closer now to finding out what the true fair market value of silver is than we have been in all the time I've been doing this. More and more people, we're talking millions of people now, understand better that the silver market has been rigged and price suppressed, if not just for the last 50 years, probably more like 170 years. Price suppression like that does not end quietly. It does not end softly. It will end with the unavailability of physical metal. And I think we saw a glimpse of it a couple weeks ago, and now we're going to see it big time. So make sure you got your metal. You're sitting on the sidelines. I know Andy has a bunch of metal coming in this week too, because he's been preparing for this. Thank God. And so send him an email and or info at Miles Franklin as well, and you'll get what you need. You'll get your physical metal in your own possession, which is really important.
Which is most important, and we all owe you a debt of gratitude. And I like to also just throw a shout out to Chris Martinson from Peak Prosperity. It's because of Chris that I have been prepared the way I have been, going all the way back to December of 2020. And right, wrong, or indifferent, he alerted me to what was coming. Regardless of how it all played out, I have made a mission for the past year and a half now, or 15 months, or whatever it's been, to 14 months, to continually, as a full-time job, seek supply coming in, no matter how I have to get it out on my line of credit, buying it well in advance, whatever it is. So I promise you that I will never sell product to your listeners without being full disclosure of, is it in stock? Is it due in this coming week? Whatever. They'll know what they're doing before we sign off on it. And transparency is very, very important to me. So anyways, Bix, I wish you a great weekend. It's always nice to see you. And one of these days, hopefully I get to give you a hug sometime. As crazy as that sounds, it's probably a criminal offense in California right now, but I'd love to come give you a hug someday, not in the near, not too far future anyway, let's say.
Well, the plan, Amy and I plan to jump in there. We're getting a new RV in April, and we plan to do some touring play some music, talk silver and freedom, and we'll be definitely headed your way to hang out, have some. What do you eat up there? Like cheese curds and beer and
Everyone loves cheese curds. I just bought a place in Florida. I'm getting out of Minnesota. It's
we'll go there
I'm here
too.
till the end of the summer, and then I'm heading to Florida. That's a discussion for another day, but probably much like the place you grew up in, I don't recognize where I grew up anymore. It's a place I was very proud of for a very long time. Minneapolis was a wonderful place to grow up and raise a family, and then all of a sudden like that, it's not, and it's time to go. So as sad as I will still have a corporate entity here in Minnesota, but we've had an office in Florida for the last 10 years. So I went down there for a vacation and came back with a new house.
Good move. Good move. All right. Hey,
Time to go.
Andy, thank you so much for spending time with us. We got to get you back to work, fill those orders, and get the Roto-Rooter people their medal. You guys send Andy an email, andy@milesfranklin.com or info@milesfranklin.com. If you want faster service, probably because he's a busy man. Thank you, Andy, and we'll talk soon.
Big Sue, take care. One last thing. Don't email both. Choose one or the other. I don't want to duplicate the effort. So one or the other, please. Info or Andy. Bix, take it easy, buddy. I'm always here if you need me. Stay well. Hope to talk to you soon.